Right, okay, in the studio, how to make a painting medium using stand oil and turps, 50-50 mixed together. That's what I like to use when I'm out painting and in the studio as well. So your stand oil is quite thick. That's your stand oil, and if you look how thick it is, you turn it upside down, it stays, it's like honey, very thick honey, compared to, that's your walnut oil, which I also use because I quite like that, it's quite thin, and that's your normal linseed oil. So stand oil is linseed oil but thickened, and that's your normal linseed oil. Quite not as runny as the walnut oil, but it's still fairly runny. Gum turpentine, that's a Michael Harding one. I use that to mix with the stand oil, 50-50, so 50% of that, 50% of the stand oil mixed together gives you a nice sort of thickish runny medium to add to your oil paints, and I really like it. The stand oil will make it go slightly glossy, which I quite like. This will help it dry faster. So it's a pretty good mix, and it's a very common mixture the old painters, the old masters used to use. This is best stored in the dark so it doesn't yellow. Right, so what we do to make this, this is another one, this is a ready-made one like Michael Harding does. You can see the consistency of it. That's a stand oil and turps. I would think it's probably 70% turps, 30% stand oil, I would think, looking at the runniness of that. Well, that's quite nice if you want to just buy one. I really like making my own. I like to make it a little bit thicker. So as you get myself a little jam jar, it's got a lid on it, really handy. These can be taken out with your painting, and it lid obviously stops it from spilling everywhere and stops any fumes from the turps coming out. So let's move on to this one. So we'll get some of this. Here we go. This is all approximate, these measurements. So sometimes it can be more like a 60-40, or like a Michael Harding 70-30, something like that mix, and a little bit runnier, but I don't mind. It's all, I'll paint with it, whatever it is like. If I need to thicken it up a little bit, I will do. So you just put that into the little jar. A bit of turps onto the top. Get the lid back on there. What I tend to do is I like to give it a, so the turps will dissolve the oil. Give it a good shake. That's dissolved it quite nicely, and I'll get myself a clean brush and I'll just give it a little stir. Give it a little stir with that brush to make sure it's completely mixed. You see, after shaking, you can see it's quite lumpy still. You just want to make sure it's completely mixed together. There we go. That's quite a nice medium to paint with. So it's a little bit thicker. You can see that, but it's a little bit thicker than the Michael Harding medium. But not as thick as what I can do sometimes. I quite like to do a bit thicker than that sometimes. But that's how you make a medium for painting with. This is a quick sketch using our stand oil and turps medium. You've got to mix this to the consistency which you quite like. You can see the drips coming off. You can see that. So what we do is just dip into that medium. We just mixed up colour for this beach. I'll do the same again, but with a sky colour. Let's go for ultramarine. Let's move these out of the way. Ultramarine, we'll get a bit of titanium white out there. I'll add a little bit of yellow in there and some magenta. What I like to do is magenta just takes the edge off that blue. Right, so what we'll do now, see there's enough medium in there just to paint with, but if you want a bit more, you just dips into there slightly. Where we've got two loaded brushes, beach, sky. So that runs. See, with the medium added to the paint, it does flow quite nicely, but it's not as runny as it would be if it was just turps. Now we switch, put some sky in, pick up that colour, not quite the right colour, but let's add a bit of cobalt blue into there. That's better. So this is what I'm using here, has got quite a nice shape. Now if we want that a bit runny, we add more medium. This is loaded with medium now, this paint. You can see how it goes on. Quite nice. And the cloud one's there. That's the shape we want there. I hope that just gives you a little insight in how to make your own mediums. That's one of many. Smells nice, but not very good for you. So stand oil turps mix. This one's probably 60-40, but normally I would do it at 50-50, something like that. So there you go. Cheers. Well, I was enjoying that sketch so much, I thought I'd carry on with it and see where I could go with this little sketch just for an hour or so. Can't quite remember how long it took. This is just a little oil on canvas, about 15 centimetres by 13 centimetres, this little canvas, and I've had a couple of these canvases for quite a while. Wasn't quite sure how to use them, so small. I thought this would be a good chance just doing this little demo on this homemade medium with stand oil and turps. This is a view of Low Bar. I really quite like the bright beach and the interesting cloud formation. I just thought I'd make a nice oil sketch using this medium, which just helps the paint flow a bit more across the canvas. It's on a really dark green ground colour, which didn't really matter too much. Don't think it influenced the painting much at all really, but that's what was ready, so that's one I used. You can see I just make some adjustments. Really simple palette, usual palette, but probably simplified the colours even more for this one. As I go along in this little sketch, further into it, I added less and less of the medium to the paint. So I wanted the paint to thicken up as I went along, so it would drag across the top of the wet, medium soaked surface. Now you see, applying some opaque, thicker opaque paint with no medium added to it at all there. So it's just straight out the tube. White tinted with either under cadmium orange or a lemon yellow or cadmium yellow. And here I'm just sort of stroking the paint on top of the wet surface. It's all a la Prima work. So just stroking it on and just gliding it across the surface, and then it sits in some places and not in others. So you just need a very light touch So you're just sort of stroking the top of the wet paint, if that makes sense. So if you want to paint fairly thin, in the sense of not too much paint on the surface early on in this type of painting, this type of sketch, and you can thicken it up as you go along. If you start the other way around and make it too thick to start with, I find you have to sort of scrape it back a bit to allow these subsequent layers to go on the top. It's all a learning process, and this is how I tend to practice all the time. So it's just like a musician or something, you've just got to keep practicing your scales and your basics all the time. So this is like a nice practice piece, just something you could fill an hour or so if you're a bit stuck for ideas. This is quite nice, just a little thing to do. I think I probably just used the same brush, if not, well, two brushes, didn't we? We had two brushes we used for the whole painting. We had the one that I showed you earlier with the blue, which I was using in the sky, and this one with the colour of the beach. So we used two brushes for the whole thing, plus the rigger. And there it is again. There I'm using my homemade marl stick, my little sort of baton, which I use for areas like this when I want to steady a hand. So yeah, so 3 brushes for the whole sketch. Just a few finishing touches to the sky there, just bring it back to a bit of a nicer blue to accentuate that cloud edge, which I really liked. Well, this sketch was all about the shape of the clouds, really. And that's it, that's low bar on a bright sunny morning. Oil on canvas, tiny canvas, 15 centimeters by 13. Alla prima, probably 30 minutes, 45 minutes, something like that. I used the stand oil and turps, homemade medium. Hope you enjoyed it, and bye for now.